like our starlings and sparrows before them, may begin to disappear from London streets.
The predator is Uber, the $40 billion US corporation banned in many places around the world, but on course, at least at present, to choke the life out of any and all competition and establish the mother of all monopolies.
Joining us now is Steve McNamara, General Secretary of the Licensed Taxi Drivers Association. Steve, welcome on the Sputnik. Just for those who don't yet know, what does Uber do and why is it a threat?
Uber's a glorified minicab company. Anyone who's lived in the UK would know there's two types of service. There's the taxi service, the black cab service that you hail on the street or you get at an airport or a station rank. And there's a minicab, which is a traditional sort of saloon car that you can call up and hire. Uber is a glorified minicab service, but instead of being able to call it or book it on the internet, you use it rather by an app on your smartphone.
So the minicabs didn't put the black cab out of business, though many predicted that it might, because black cabs offer something special, and we'll come to that in a minute. Why is Uber such a mortal threat?
The big difference is that the taxi service in London is the most regulated and controlled taxi industry anywhere in the world. The drivers, we're told what vehicles to drive, we're told what to charge, we're licensed very, very strictly indeed. We have to jump through so many hoops. You have to spend 3 or 4 years learning your way around. Lots and lots of controls on the taxi industry. What's happened is we're now competing with somebody who is virtually unregulated. Uber are being allowed to do what they want, when they want. They're acting as taxi cabs in London. They're driving a horse and cart through the rules and regulations that govern us and govern the minicab industry. And incidentally, it's just not us that say this. The established minicab industry is saying the same thing. And what's happening, they're being allowed to drive a horse and cart through the rules and regulations. They're doing exactly what they want, completely unhindered by Transport for London, who regulate taxis and private hire in London, under the mayor of Boris Johnson, the mayoralty of Boris Johnson. And as a result, we're struggling. The unskilled labour, driving uninsured, cheap cars, being held on the street using an app, using a meter to charge fares. All of these things they're not allowed to do. All of them they're being allowed to do. And the regulators say to us when we say, why are they being allowed to do this? It's a competition.
Well, that's their mantra, of course, competition. But it's not fair competition, because my son-in-law is doing the knowledge at the moment, hopes to be one of your members before very long, if the trade still exists by the time he's finished. These hoops that you talk about are necessary hoops because they are character hoops.
Yep.
They are criminal record and other personality and behavioural checks.
Yep.
The standard of the vehicle has to be just so, the cleanliness of it has to be just so, and of course the knowledge of where you're actually going. And you can be held to account if you go the wrong way in a black cab, but you can't in an Uber.
No, Uber are allowed to do exactly what they want. All of the things that you've said, as I say to you, Transport for London set our fares. They test me, and your son-in-law will be tested, that he knows every single street within 6 miles of Charing Cross without a sat-nav. He just knows all the names of the streets, public buildings, theatres, restaurants, anything that a passenger could want to know, you have to know. All of these things we're made to do. They then tell us what to charge. They make us drive one of the most expensive vehicles on the road, a black cab. The cheapest one at the moment is about £40,000 to buy. Cost a fortune to run. They do probably 18, 20 miles to the gallon. And we're constantly checked for safety of the vehicle, all of which is great. You know, the vehicle's checked on street, the vehicle's checked every 3 months to make sure it's safe. On-street compliance officers turning up on ranks, opening the bonnet, checking everything, all of which is great. It ensures public safety. Unfortunately, we're now competing with somebody who many of the vehicles are not even insured. Many of the people driving them are not even on the Uber platform. What's happening at the moment is you sign up for Uber, and then at the weekends, you just give the phone to your brother or your neighbour and he goes out in the car. He hasn't even been checked, let alone that you've been checked. He hasn't been checked. They don't even know who's driving the car. And the regulators and the police are telling us it's competition, hardly a level playing field. All we're asking for is enforce the existing laws. You wrote the laws, you made them, just enforce them. We're happy to follow them. Why can't everybody else?
And you say competition, but there are obviously places who successfully have banned Uber.
Yeah, Uber's been banned in various places around the world. The difference being that they weren't licensed or regulated there. The idea of a licensed market is that you have to comply with the licensing regulations before you can operate. I mean, let me just give you some of the stories that we get from TfL now. To be a licensed operator, a minicab operator, there's various requirements you have to go through. But one of them is you've got to have a landline, a fixed landline, and that ensures that the public can ring you and contact you. So Uber haven't got a landline. So when we say to TfL, in a simple one, there's lots of others, they haven't got a landline. They say, they only need a landline on the day they apply. Only on the day they apply. Why would anyone write legislation where you only needed a landline on the day you... Obviously, Parliament intended them to have a landline. There's no two ways about it.
Yeah. Now, I introduced them as a $40 billion US corporation. How on earth did they amass that level of capital? And what's the purpose of it, if not to drive out all competition?
Well, firstly, you're wrong. It's probably approaching $50 billion, I'm now informed, this week. The week before it was 48 billion. I'm now told this morning it's approaching 50 billion. Uber's business model is the complete mystery to many people. What happens at the moment, they get money in from various venture capitalists and various funding options, and they pump it out the door in the form of free rides. What they do at the moment, if you sign up to Uber, you'll get a £10 voucher. You then text George your code, he gets a £10 voucher. He texts me, I get a £10 voucher. Once I get one, you then get another one because they trace it back to you. They're pumping money out the door, they're bringing it in and they're spending it. Quite what the business model is, I really don't see, because at the moment they're not making any money, they're just spending it.
Yeah. But that's what you do if you want to create a monopoly. You basically undercut everyone else, free giveaways, 2 for the price of 1 and all of that. In this case, 3, 4, 5 for the price of 1. And once you've got the monopoly, of course, the market is yours to exploit as you will. Whereas your fares are regulated, theirs will not be. And the only way will be up. So how seriously are the cab trade taking this? What do you plan to do as the leader of the association?
Right, well, what we did, George, the first thing we did, we approached the Mayor and Transport for London and we laid out very specific and clear breaches of the rules and regulations by Uber. And we said, these are the offences they're committing. They're using a meter, they're not allowed to. They're accepting automatic howls in the street, they're not allowed to. The driver takes the booking in the car, they're not allowed to. It's meant to be done at an operations centre. They're taking a booking in London and processing it in Holland in order to avoid paying tax. I'll come to that in a moment. Yeah. They're supposed to be taking the book. So we lay this big, long list of complaints in front of the regulator and we say this is what they're doing. They've then come back. It took them months to come back. They've come back with various reasons why they don't think it's quite illegal and why perhaps they should be doing this. Lots and lots of very lame excuses to why they're not operating. As a result of that and their refusal to act, we've taken out private prosecutions against Uber. The first one we've taken out is for the use of a meter. They're very clearly using a meter to price fares. That's currently going before the High Court. We're very shortly to issue private prosecutions for applying for hire, taking bookings in a car and operating without a licence. Once again, our members are having to fund this because the regulator won't do it. Questions need to be asked as to why the regulator won't do it. It's very clear what's going on. And all the time, it's an uphill struggle. We get to the magistrates' court, and the first thing the magistrates want to know is, well, why are the authorities not doing this? Why are you doing it? Why is it, if it's the issue you say, the regulator should act. We're on the back foot all the time. But we are in the courts, we are pursuing Uber, but we're fighting on 2 fronts. Not only are we fighting in the courts, but Uber have got a £250,000 a month PR budget, which they're spending with the media, across the media, try and find many articles criticising Uber. Just recently there's been a few, but prior to that it was all good news with Uber because of the money they're spending with journalists, because of the money they're spending with PR and marketing companies. We're fighting an uphill battle, but we've taken to the streets on several occasions to raise our profile. We're shortly to raise our the whole profile of the matter. Let me tell you what Uber do. They're very, very careful who they employ. They pay big money and they very select who they employ. They've just employed Rachel Whetstone. She used to be the head of PR and marketing at Google. Her husband is Steve Hilton, the famous Downing Street guru, personal friend of David Cameron. In fact, I believe she was the godparent to one of his children. He's now... David Cameron, when we did a demonstration last week, has popped up suddenly in favour of choice, and he's in favour of the consumer. Quite why he's in favour of the consumer being put at risk by an unregulated and unlicensed firm is a question that needs to be asked. All of this is to keep exerting Uber's influence. Their tentacles are getting deep into politics. I mean, you know more than most the lobbying and stuff that goes on.
Does it not trouble Cameron that they don't pay tax because of all these devices?
Doesn't seem to trouble Cameron at all. It certainly doesn't seem to trouble George.
Am I right about that? They don't pay tax?
Uber don't pay any tax in the UK. This $50 billion US corporation have domiciled themselves in Holland. In Holland, they've got special VAT exemptions of only 6% for transport companies. So they take advantage of that by domiciling themselves in Holland. In the UK, they'll tell you they're not a transport company, they're a technology provider. Yet they domicile themselves in Holland and tell the Dutch authorities they're a transport company to take advantage of that. They're not paying a penny tax in the UK, and the irony of it is, Uber sell themselves to as potential earning income to unskilled people. They tell them you can become a cab driver, come onto Uber, and you'll earn £40,000 a year. And understandably, with the economy the way it is and unemployment the way it is, many people sign up to that lifestyle and that commitment. Why wouldn't you? They get themselves a car, they get themselves a minicab licence, and very quickly they realise that in order to earn minimum wage, they've got to be working 12 or 14 hours a day. If they want to earn anything above minimum wage, they've got to be working 18 hours a day. As a result, many of the Uber drivers are claiming tax credits and other Department of Work and Pensions benefits, which they're entitled to, for not earning enough money.
So they're not... Uber ain't paying us tax, and the taxpayer is paying Uber's drivers. Sounds like a David Cameron scheme to me. Steve, we've got to leave it there, but we're going to talk about this again. Good luck with your campaign.